Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful framework for getting a handle on worry. And I'm not just talking about a few helpful tips here. This is a technique that's so effective, it has literally saved a person's life.
So, what's the story behind a quote like that? I mean, that's a pretty heavy statement. Let's kick things off right there, because it really sets the stage for everything we're about to unpack.
This is the story of Praveen Kumar, a guy who found himself in a situation that is pretty much the stuff of nightmares, the kind of thing that could push anyone to the absolute edge.
So he wakes up from this coma and it's just one gut punch after another. First, the brain injury is severe. Then he finds out his family's entire life savings are gone, spent on his medical care. And then, the final blow. Doctors tell him that without a super expensive operation they just can't afford, he's only got a few days to live.
You can imagine, right? He was completely shattered, just overwhelmed with despair. But right there, at his lowest point, he stumbled across a framework for dealing with fear. And it hit him so hard, he started watching an explanation of it on a loop, just over and over and over again.
And that framework, it gave him the mental grit to just keep fighting. So what happened? Well, fast forward 9 years. He's not just alive, he is perfectly healthy, living a full life. It's an incredible testament to the power of getting your mind right. Praveen's story is just wow. It's such a powerful example that our mindset can matter even more than what's actually happening to us. Because worry, it turns out, isn't just a feeling. It has a real physical cost, and it can be absolutely devastating.
I mean, just look at this contrast. It's wild. On one hand, you have Napoleon. He had it all. Fame, power, more money than you can imagine. And yet he said he barely had a week of happy days in his whole life. Then you have Helen Keller, who couldn't see, hear, or speak, and she said life was beautiful. It just goes to show you, happiness is an inside job.
And look, this isn't just some nice philosophical idea. This is backed by cold hard science. Dr. Alexis Carrel, a Nobel Prize winner, put it pretty bluntly. If you don't know how to fight worry, you will probably die younger.
In fact, get this. One chief physician estimated that a staggering 70% of his patients could actually cure themselves if they could just get rid of their fears and worries.
And check this out. A study of 15,000 people with stomach issues found a really shocking pattern. For every one person whose problem had a physical cause, there were 4 others who were suffering from things like worry, fear, and hate. Their minds were literally making their bodies sick.
So when you put it all together, the research points to this one incredible fact. A whopping 97% of the things we worry about are either completely baseless or they're just not worth the energy we pour into them. Okay, so if almost all our worry is useless, how do we stop it? How do we actually fight back? Well, it all starts with this beautifully simple 3-step formula from an engineer named Willis Carrier, who was staring down a problem that could have totally ruined him. So Carrier was managing this huge multi-million-dollar project, and it was a complete disaster. It just wasn't working. We're talking catastrophic financial loss, his entire reputation on the line. The stress was so bad he couldn't even sleep. He was just paralyzed by worry. And then, in the middle of all that chaos, he had this moment of pure clarity. He realized that all this worrying, it wasn't solving anything. It wasn't fixing the problem. It was just torturing him. He knew he had to stop panicking and start thinking. And this is the formula he came up with. It's so simple. Step 1. Just ask yourself, what is the absolute worst thing that could possibly happen here? Step 2. Bring yourself to mentally accept that worst-case scenario. Just make your peace with it. And then step 3, and this is the game changer, calmly put all your energy into making things better than that worst case you've already accepted. Okay, so a 3-step formula sounds great in theory, right? But does it actually hold up when things get really, truly awful? To see just how powerful this is, let's look at the incredible true story of a guy named Earl P. Haney. So Haney gets diagnosed with a terminal illness, and the doctors basically say, sorry, there's nothing we can do. They send him home to die. So what does he do? He uses Carrier's formula. He accepts the worst case, his own death. Then he decides to improve on that reality. He books a world tour, even brings his own coffin along for the ride. He just sailed the world, ate what he wanted, drank, had a great time, and lived without a single care. The result? He comes home 90 pounds heavier and completely cured. By accepting the worst and then just letting go of the worry, he literally saved his own life. So that 3-step formula is an absolute powerhouse for those big, scary problems. But what about the day-to-day grind?
We can also cultivate 2 key mindsets to stop those smaller, everyday worries from taking over our lives.
The first mindset is just gratitude. Let me ask you a serious question. What would you sell your hands for? Your legs? Your eyesight? $50 million? No way, right? The truth is, you already own treasures that are completely priceless.
We spend so much of our lives worrying about the things we don't have, a fancier car or a bigger house, and we totally forget the incredible assets we already possess. So instead of focusing on what you lack, try this. Once a day, just list the things you're grateful for. It's a simple shift in perspective, but it's totally revolutionary.
The second mindset is perspective. And there's no better story for this than Robert Morse. During a war, he was trapped in a submarine 276 feet deep, while enemy ships were dropping explosives all around him. He was absolutely certain he was about to die.
And in that moment, staring death in the face, he started thinking about all his old worries, his crummy salary, his annoying boss, and he realized how completely ridiculous and meaningless they were. He made a vow to himself. If he ever saw the sun again, he would never let small stuff upset him. He survived, and he kept that promise.
What Robert Moore figured out in that submarine is actually backed up by data. When you break down the things we worry about, the numbers are kind of shocking. A massive 85% of our anxieties are about things that, poof, never even happen. Another 12% are for trivial little things that aren't worth the stress. That leaves just a tiny 3% that are actually real, legitimate concerns.
By accepting the worst, by focusing on what's right in front of us and just being grateful, we can break that destructive cycle of worry. So that leaves us with one final and really important question. Of all the things that are eating up your energy right now, how many of them actually fall into that real 3%?